Tous? All right, I need to speak on the microphone. That's going to be easy for the demo. Anyway. Plus proche. Vous m'entendez là? Mais elle n'est pas si grande la salle. Vous m'entendez pas sans micro? Non, mais c'est bon. C'est mieux. Ok. Ok. Il y a tellement de micros, je m'en sors plus là. Alors bonjour à tous. Je parle français, mais vu que j'ai un terrible accent suisse, je vais directement switcher en anglais, sinon vous allez vous moquer de moi pendant des heures. So, I'm Dominic Guinard. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Everything, a company located in Zurich and London. And today I'm going to talk to you about the Web of Things, and especially what place can Android have in the Web of Things. What I did is I put as many buzzwords as I could in the presentation. So you have barcode, NFC, EPC, Arduino, and the effect is that the room is full, right? So I saw that the session was tagged as intermediate, but I'm going to stay more on the surface because I can't treat all these technologies in depth, right? But if you have any questions in the end, or if you want to talk afterwards more in depth about anything there, just let me know. All right, so first let me tell you about what the Web of Things and the Internet of Things is. Because I did 7 years of research and my PhD in the field, I tend to forget that not everybody is in that field. So basically it's the field of connected devices, right? And there are many connected devices. When I talk about connected devices, I mean devices that are not computers, right? A computer is connected, obviously. So is a phone, but think of everything else, right? In the talk before, we were talking about dishwashers powered by Linux. Well, that's the kind of connected devices I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, there'll be 1 trillion connected devices by 2015, so it's a generally interesting market to work in. Now, what will the Internet of Things look like? So one of my favorite articles that I got to write was with a guy here in France for Science et Vie Junior. I don't know if anybody knows this magazine. That was my favorite magazine when I was a kid. So when the guy called me, I was so excited. We did this article, and basically, this is probably what the future will look like, right? You wake up in the morning, your toaster is complaining because last time you gave it bread that wasn't good. The clock is my favorite one. It's complaining about the fact that you're waking up so late, and so on and so forth. So what we're trying to implement in the Internet of Things is to connect all these things together. I think in a not so far future, when you look for your shoes, you'll be able to just Google for them, actually. Same thing with your car, right? Your car will be able to tweet you. Whenever it's charged or whenever it needs refuel or changing the tire, it will just tweet you to make sure that you take care of it. You already see some applications, some crazy applications of the Internet of Things popping up here and there. 2 of my favorites, this is the pizza button. So basically it's a button with a SIM card inside. And whenever you want to order a pizza, you just press it and the pizza comes delivered 10 minutes later. So that's pretty cool. You can actually push your favorite kind of pizza in the button so that you're sure you have your pizza delivered. The other one is actually an example from here. It's from Evian, where it's the same kind of device that lets you actually order bottled water. Although, of course, bottled water is evil. So what we're trying to build at Everything, we're trying to build, if you want, something like a Facebook of things, right? You have Facebook when you want to manage connections between people, when you want to interact with people, or when you want to create applications that use people. Well, we're trying to do the same thing for things, right? So we work with brands, and we help them using several techniques to connect their products. It could be barcodes, it could be image recognition, which we implemented recently. It could be an embedded web server. It could be an NFC tag. And then we create applications that link people and products. And we have an engine that lets you actually interact with this data and make sense out of it. All right, so you must be wondering, what am I doing in a Droid conference, right? Well, just wait. You're going to see. So basically, if you look at the Internet of Things, the space is like that. So you have 3 kind of subcategories, right? You can think of tagged object. What if you could tag this Vitel bottle? You can think of sensor networks. I have some devices here. And you can think of home and home appliances and machines that are connected to the web. And what we'll look is we first will go into the level 1, so tagging objects. And then we'll go into the level 2, so looking at sensor networks and so on. And we'll slowly go into the level 3 and briefly talk about that level in the end. But let me start first with the barcode and QR code level. So that's the primary, the first level we're interested in. It's the bootstrap of the Internet of Things, right? The simplest way of connecting objects together. Because you can't do that, unfortunately. You can't go to Procter & Gamble and tell them, hey, I have this awesome idea. Plug a USB dongle to your pack of washing powder, and then they can tweet, right? That's obviously way too expensive. However, tagging products is something that starts to become interesting. And this is an example I saw in Zurich a couple of months ago. So you have a store in front of the store. So this is actually a sticker in front of the store. And you can scan objects. You can scan goods. They have QR codes. And with your mobile phone, you can actually order them. So if you're really stressed and there is a long queue, you just scan them, and they get delivered to your place. Unfortunately, the Swiss police, which is very strict, didn't like that too many people were standing in front of the window, so they ripped off the sticker. But the idea was there. Now, how does that link back to Android? Well, if only Spock had an Android phone, right? That would have been very cool. Spock had this tricorder, right? Or tricorder, however you pronounce it, right? Which was some kind of a pre-smartphone that would let him know about anything in the universe, right? So he could scan aliens and know if they were dangerous or not. Well, he had this device as a view to the world, as a view on the physical world, right? And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a device that would be the view on the physical world. And I think Android is that device. And I think you're not going to prove me wrong, right? It can be really the bootloader of the Internet of Things. It has a massive market penetration worldwide. I think we see the numbers increasing. And it has great QR code support, great barcode support with open source libraries. It has NFC support. Hello, iPhone. And it has, since recently, ADK and ADB for hardware extension support. So if you want to go the hardware extension way, you can either do it like we saw it in the talk before, the really hardcore, low-level, very optimized way, or you can use more the fancy for developers like me, ADK and ADB, which I'm going to show you what it looks like. All right, QR codes. So golden rule for QR codes, if you want to deploy an application, is to use only QR codes. I don't know if you know this code, but actually this is the Microsoft code. And that I consider as an evil code because QR codes are going to be useful once everybody knows how to use them. And I'm sure everybody here already used the QR code, right? Who didn't? You didn't. Cool. Well, the thing is, when you deploy an application in the real world, like we did recently in Venezuela, for instance, well, people have absolutely no clue what's a QR code, right? So if we want to democratize it, then we really need to focus on one standard. And I suggest that standard being the QR code because it's an open standard. It's a royalty-free encoding algorithm, which was developed by Toyota. Surprising, but they do very good stuff in that space as well. It has 40 different encoding levels, so you can encode more and more data. As you see, this one is much more dense than this one. Of course, that comes with the cost of readability. And it has 4 error correction levels. So what designers love to do is to stick a logo right in the middle of a QR code, which is a nightmare for a developer, but great for a designer. And you can use this error correction to actually find the missing bit if there's a logo in the middle. And you can put standardized content. So you can put URLs. There's a way to tell, hey, there's a URL inside that QR code. But there's also a way to tell there's a V card, right? A business card inside a QR code. And there are about, I think, about 12 different standards. Let me just give you an example of how QR codes could be used. So that's a campaign we recently deployed in Brazil, Chile, Venezuela, and it's about whiskey, right? Girls love to buy flowers for Mother's Day. Guys don't know what to buy for Father's Day, so we decided whiskey might be a good thing. We stick a QR code on every whiskey bottle, and this QR code is actually unique. So when you buy the bottle, you can actually scan the code of this bottle, and it links directly to this particular bottle. Then what you can do is that you can add a personalized video for your dad, and when he reads the bottle, scans the QR code once you told him how to do it, which is a tricky part, then he gets the video directly delivered, and the video is some kind of poetry with pictures and so on. Okay, back to Android. Oh, gosh, I'm already talking too much. Back to Android. So on Android, you have the zebra crossing library, which is probably one of the best QR code and 1D barcode decoding library out there. Anybody used it already? Wow, okay, yeah, so you must feel bored now. Okay, so I'll go really quickly on that one. So it's great at scanning 1D and 2D QR codes. Obviously, 2D QR codes are much easier at scanning because they have actually markers, right? These little markers actually tell the camera where the QR code is located, right? These four, the orientation. 1D barcodes, on the other hand, are much more complicated to read because they were meant for industrial scanners. But zebra crossing does a pretty good job at both, actually. And you can embed it in your app completely, or you can call it via an intent. Actually, zebra crossing is one of the applications that I think had 100 million downloads on the market. So it's pretty well deployed, so you don't necessarily need to embed it in your application, but can just call it. All right, so let's start with a pet project. I love to show demos. Usually I show 70 demos in a talk, out of which just 2 work, but that's a side effect. So we'll do a simple Android app that I prepared a couple of months ago for a similar session. So we'll do a Freeze Me project, right? One of the most hated use cases of the Internet of Things is the smart fridge, right? Because it was one of the early applications and nobody really understood what it was for. So let's redo that application, right? So we put on each product an identity in the form of either a QR code or an NFC tag. And then each product will have its own validity date, and then the product will ping you once it's getting bad, right? I put stuff in my freezer, and I keep forgetting them in the freezer. So the lasagna could tell you, hey, look, I'm getting bad, just eat me, please. Would be great if the lasagna could tell you I'm made of horse meat as well, but cannot yet. So it can ping you via Twitter or SMS before it turns bad. So for that, we actually use the Everything API. The Everything API, we have several APIs for our customers, but we have one that we actually make available to all the developers in the world. We have about 600 developers right now that use it. And you can do things like generating product metadata, and then this product metadata is displayed using microformats. You can generate things, and a thing is an instance of a product, right? If I take a bottle like that, that's a product. But if I take this particular bottle, that's a thing, right? And then you can have temporal properties. If you think of sensor networks like that, they have to stream data, right? They have to keep updating their temperature, their vibration level, and so on. So we have the support for temporal property and queries. We can create collections. That's what we're going to create for our freezer. We're going to create a collection in which we put things. We put things in our freezer. And then you can generate short IDs that are embeddable in NFC tags and QR codes. And there is a beta support for Android, but that is really beta because it was released a couple of weeks ago, and we're still working on it heavily. OK, so let's try to code some. Who wants to see some code? Yeah, I like that. All right, that's going to be the challenging part with the microphone. Wow. I have a lovely assistant. OK. Well, that would be awesome, yeah. All right, so Is that the right one? That's not the right one. I know. Oh, okay. Yeah. Can you see that? Wow. That's great. At least not the red, but that's the import, so who cares about the import? Okay, so the first thing you need to do to put QR codes in your application is to declare that in the manifest. So basically, I'm getting confused already. This is just for NFC, right? So you don't need to do that in the manifest. So let me just show you the actual code that you need to embed. And this is in the freeze me activity. Yeah, okay, so we just create a button that will trigger the scanning. And we actually have two ways of doing it. Either we just call the application like we would do it traditionally, or we actually have a cleaner way using a special intent from zebra crossing that will initiate the scan for us. That's the second part, right? What's cool about this new intent is that it actually also triggers the download of zebra crossing in case the client doesn't have it. Then when the scan is successful, all you need to do is either that way, if you actually embedded it and use your own intents, or if you use the zebra crossing intents, just that way. So basically, you're getting the result, the scan result, you do get contents, and you parse that to URI, because in our case, we always put URIs in QR codes. Right, so I wish I could demo you what this looks like. But as you see, it's pretty trivial, but I'm thinking that the Wi-Fi will not work. Let's just try, but I tried so many times before. Ooh, Sony Xperia followed me. That's awesome. Whoever that is. Okay, so then you try to reconnect, and if it doesn't work, I'll just give up. Am I the only one not being able to connect to the network? No. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't work. That's rather annoying, but okay, let me show you what it would look like. But of course it won't work. Okay, so okay, that's big enough. So I press scan the QR code, and what that does is it directly triggers the QR code scanning software, and then it's very straightforward. Actually, all I need to do is to go grab my QR code. Sorry. Okay. And the experience is pretty seamless. And then, yeah, it will unfortunately not work because there's no network. So basically what the application does, then it will fetch the data from everything. And then you can add stuff to your freezer or remove it. But I can't demo it right now, so sorry about that. That was the awesomest demo you've ever seen, right? So convincing. Okay, right. Oh, boy. All right, so brief recap. Okay. All right, so barcodes are cool, QR codes are cool, but we all agree that touching always feels better, doesn't it? So let's talk about NFC. NFC stands for Near Field Communication, and it's a 13.15 56 megahertz touch technology. The 13.56 megahertz means that we can't really read from a distance, so we have to be really close to the tag. It's driven by the NFC forum, in which Nokia, Intel, Visa, and recently also Google are. And as for QR codes, there is a standard that lets you know what's the content of an NFC tag. So you can have URLs, text, you can have posters, and different things like that. Android loves NFC, so Android wasn't one of the platforms to revive NFC. I mean, NFC was going to die 5 years ago, and then Android announced, Google announced that there will be Android support in the SDK. That was version 2.3.3 with the API 10, and that was a big boom for NFC again. So now you can also find tags again and buy them. Now, a cool thing about NFC on Android is that it can wake application on tag discovery. So whenever your application discovers a tag, it will actually, whenever Android, discovers a tag, it will actually pop up the right application. The API is relatively complex, so just for scanning a tag and reading it, you have to write a decent number of lines of code, but it's actually quite powerful. You can use it for mobile payments, you can use it for many things. If you want a nice tutorial, because when I was beginning with NFC on Android, I Googled a lot and couldn't find any comprehensive resource. So this one is actually pretty good from Net Magazine. What can be NFC good for? There is a woman who wrote last week a blog post that became one of the most well-known blog posts about NFC, and she said that NFC stands for nobody fucking scare. Well, I think it's pretty wrong, actually. I think NFC has great potential for mobile payment, obviously, for also posters, marketing, but also let me show you a simple application I have at home. So when I come at home, I use my phone, and I put my phone in this thing, which is sitting on the table. When I do that, it detects the NFC tag, and because it knows this tag, it will actually start syncing all my data with our home server, so all the pictures I took during the day and so on. It will also start the music system, because we use a Squeezebox music system, so it's simply a URL I need to call to start it. And then it does things like turning on the Wi-Fi, dimming the alarm so that I don't get too disturbed at home. Then when I go to bed, my girlfriend finds that really geeky, but whenever I go to bed, I touch the little tag over there. And what it does is that it actually turns off the phone, so put it in airplane mode, turns down the ringtones, except the alarm clock, pops the alarm clock, and asks me when I want to wake up tomorrow. But when I leave home, I have another NFC tag. I just touch it. You're laughing, but it takes me just 1 second for all 3 tags, and I find that awesome, right? So when I touch it, it disconnects the Wi-Fi, prepares my phone for the car, because then I'm putting it in the car, turns on the GPS, and so on. So for that, I use a simple app called the NFC Task Launcher, which is a pretty nice one that lets you do all that, basically, if you have a phone that's NFC enabled. So let's go back to our pet project, FreezeMe, and let's try to add NFC support to our app. And I'm going to show you 2 ways of doing NFC with explicit triggering, so triggering of the NFC reader in the app, or with waking up on NFC. So I just need to grab the NFC tag that I created before. By the way, I have loads of NFC tags in that case if you want to see different form factors afterwards. And I lost my NFC tag. Awesome. I guess the second demo is going to fail.
And we did not finish.
And we did not finish.
Yeah. So you can maybe have 3 at the end.
3, you mean?
3 fails.
3?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so let me show you the code instead. Oh, that sucks. Big times. I'll find it, I promise. Okay. All right. So I need my lovely assistant again. I would need my lovely assistant. Thanks.
I was just checking for the Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah.
We're working on it.
Great. Yeah, it's always hard in a conference, right?
Yeah.
Everybody connects at the same time. Okay, so this time the key is in the Android manifest, right? So this is the way we will trigger the right activity. So basically, it's very trivial. All you need to do is to put, the activity you want to start, and then the interesting part is that you can set up the action that you want to bind. So there are several actions. There is an action when a tag is discovered, when a tag is not read anymore, and so on and so forth. Here, it's on discovery. And then you can put a URL. So only if that URL matches will the application will be waken up. So that's pretty cool because you can support several applications. And then that's pretty much it. Then if you want to use the reader explicitly in your Android app, then all you have to do is ask for reading directly in your activities. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, so we're back to our freeze me activity. And here we have the button for, okay, so we have the button for the NFC reading. And then that's the explicit start of the NFC reader. So we start it in the application. We ask the NFC reader to read directly in the application. And the other one is where's the other one? Actually, that's a trick question. Where is the other one? Actually, the activity is waken up directly by the oh man, I'm getting confused. Okay, I need to find it. So basically, this activity will be called directly and launched by the Android framework. I just don't find the line. This is probably the stress, but there is a line where we just read it then. Okay, never mind. Okay. So let me go back. Yeah, again, I can't demo it because it's not going to work, unfortunately. But basically, yeah, in the second method, you have the activity started, and in the you guys need to help me. Where is it in the code? You know it. Oh, man. Thanks. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I was not in the right class. Yeah, so this is extremely trivial in that one. So you basically get the data in the intent. You just need to get that, transform it to a string. In our case, it's a URI. And the system knows it because we said we react on URIs. And then we use that URI to fetch the data, the product data, and then we're ready to display it on the phone. But again, it won't work here. All right. Internet came back? Should I try? Yeah, but I don't have the NFC tag, so it's not going to be helpful. Okay. All right. There is another option also for RFID, which is quite interesting, but unfortunately for political reasons, this option was never ported to mobile phones, right? So there's a standard called the EPC standard, which stands for Electronic Product Code. This is a 96-bit worldwide unique product identifier that identifies any instance of a product. And it's used for commercial applications. So in Germany, you have the Metro Future Store that is using this technique. In the US, you have Walmart. And basically, that would be cool if it was also available on mobile phones. When I was at Nokia Research, we worked on a phone like that that would be able to read EPC tags. And what was interesting is that it could read it from a distance, right? So up to 5-6 meters, we could read the tags. So think about the applications. Problem is, if you think too much about the applications, you might also get scared, right? Because then you can track people and you can track their goods without them knowing that. But basically, there is currently no Android phone or no phone that supports EPC out of the box. But it would have been a nice standard because it enables much more than NFC. Okay, now we will try to go to the level 4. Actually, it's level 3, right? Just to see if you notice and if you're following me. Ooh, losing my microphone. Too much tech around me. So let's try to go embedded, right? Let's think of embedded computers, because this is the next level of the Internet of Things. So there are many of these embedded devices. Who has ever heard or used, let's say, used one of these devices, one of these embedded devices to create cool prototypes? Oh, quite a number of people, right? So you have many of these here. You actually tied me to the chair. It's pretty cool. It's very nice, I appreciate. Am I moving too much? So this is an Arduino. One that I like quite a lot is the FlyPort. The FlyPort is quite interesting because it has Wi-Fi out of the box, which the Arduino doesn't have. A crazy one is the BeagleBoard, which you can program using Node.js on the node. This one is pretty cool. It's just a SIM card you put in any device, and this device becomes Wi-Fi enabled. It has a web server you can interact with. That's the Raspberry Pi, probably one of the most well-known ones. This is one from the Sunspot, the I/O bridge, and the Embed. So lots and lots of these devices out there. And at everything, we actually, whenever we can, we try to do cool things with these devices. So one showcase we did for Wired with ARM was a smart coffee machine, right? That's also a well-known use case. It was a coffee machine that you could tweet to, or that you could actually interact with over the web, get your favorite coffee. And actually, we created an application that people had to tweet 5 times, everything is cool, to get a free coffee. Good marketing. Okay, so the most well-known platform, and probably to its own right, is the Arduino platform. Who has ever heard of Arduino or used some? Wow. Okay, well, I'm talking to people who know everything, so why do you come here? Okay, so it's a leading open source electronics prototyping platform. It has various sizes. Various prices as well. It starts from 20, which is hard to beat, to 70. The IDE is based on processing, and it's a Java IDE. So processing is a cool IDE for art and design applications that was created at MIT. And it is currently based on the 80 mega, 8 or 16 megahertz. As I said, you have lots of alternatives, and one of my favorites one is the FlyPort, the OpenPicus FlyPort, which is also built in Italy. So I invite you to test it. But what's interesting about Arduino is that Android and Arduino fell in love a couple of years ago, right? So we said the Arduino is a massive platform, the Android is a massive platform, so they were meant to get together. What's cool is that Arduino is leveraging the openness of Android, right? If Android had been like the iPhone platform, it would never have happened, right? Because the first time this coupling of Arduino and Android happened was through a hack that we will see later on. And then Google saw that, and they reacted. They could have reacted by closing the doors to the hack, but what they did is they actually standardized the hack to create what we know today as the Open Accessory Development Kit, the ADK. And the hack was actually the Android Debug Bridge microbridge project. So through the Android Debug port, you could actually access the phone and access all the data you needed to have a back and forth communication between the device, the Android device, and the Arduino. So let's start with the ADK. So it's the official accessory prototyping platform. It was presented at Google I/O 2011 and was again presented this year with a little revamp. And there is ADK support in Android 2.3.4 with a particular kernel though, and Android tablets also support it. And if you want an Arduino device that supports the ADK, you have the Mega ADK. That's the one I have here, which supports it out of the box. And yeah, I was trying to find the advantages and disadvantages of both ways. So the advantage is that this is the official way, and you can then turn your project into a real accessory if you use this system. One of the disadvantages is that the ADK compatible hardware is actually quite expensive, and it's a little bit more complex than with the hack. So let's try again. Okay, this time, this doesn't require the web, so it should work, right? Okay. So, just need to find the right window. Okay, I'm going to start the Arduino IDE, which looks like this. Have you ever used it? Anybody here? It's cool, but it feels pretty weak when you use a real IDE, right? But I mean, it's meant for designers in the first place. And so this is basically the code that we're going to use. Can you see something? Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So what you first need to, what the code is going to do is it's going to blink a LED. Woo. So the first thing you need to do is to declare the accessory, because it's the official way. You need to have a declaration of the accessory, both on the accessory side and also on the application side, the application that's going to use the accessory. So we give the model, description, and all these fields need to be exactly the same in the Android application. Then you have the traditional setup of an Arduino application. So you have the setup method, which is basically the constructor, if you want to see it that way. It's not at all an object-oriented language, but it's the bootstrap of the application, right? So we basically set on the serial port just to be able to debug. We set on the pin so that we give power to the pin, and we tell the accessory to power on and to start the communication with Android. Then we have a main loop, and that main loop actually is just communicating with the Android device and getting back bytes that will tell it whether or not it should turn the LED on or off. So let me show you what it looks like. So, okay, all right. So we use a LED. Which side of a LED is the ground floor? The longest or the shortest? Is it? All right, thanks. Okay. Then we plug the device. We have to power it because in the ADK specification, devices need to be powered by, the accessory needs to be powered itself. And actually, the Android phone will withdraw power to charge himself from the accessory. Okay. So you're going to see it. Hopefully working. So I plugged in the Arduino, and the first thing we see is that the application, the right application, is started, right? That's also because of this descriptor that we add there. It knows which application it should start. And now if I press the button, The LED doesn't turn on. Awesome. Who said the longest was the ground floor? Okay. All right. That's because we're amongst geeks, right? Because when I show that to my girlfriend, she's like, yeah, so what? Okay. So, let me show you what it would look like. I have so many windows open, it's crazy. What it looks like in terms of Java code. Oh, great, sorry. I should open that EDID. All right, so. Okay, cool. So it's actually a pretty long and intense piece of code just to turn on an LED. So I won't go into all the details, but basically the most interesting parts are in the broadcast receiver. So this method that you have to write actually is in charge of starting the connectivity with the device and then getting back the data whenever it's changed. You have also to take care of restarting the connection whenever you resume the device, because it will be cut whenever it goes into sleep mode. And you have to read the file descriptor to check whether it's as you described it in the in your setting. So you have to describe it then in the XML settings, so in the Android manifest. Exactly. So here you have to specify an intent that will be waken up whenever you add your device. And we use, again, here we have several events, but the one we use is the USB accessory attached, which will wake up the right activity. And then you have a last filter, which is the accessory filter. It's probably in the resource. XML. Yeah, and the accessory filter contains the profile I was talking to you about before in order to know which application it should be, the accessory should be redirected to, and to authentify the accessory. Okay, so any questions so far? Anything? Or questions for the end? Or should leave questions for the end? Or yeah, okay, sorry. All right, so another way, an alternative way of doing that is actually to use the Android debug bridge. And that was, until yesterday, late in the night, my favorite way. I'm going to explain why late in the night. So it's actually a misuse of the Android debug system. So as I said, it uses the Android debug bridge. And what's interesting is that you have several Arduino shields for that. So if you have an Arduino device, you can buy a shield that actually supports the ADB. No, this shield actually also supports the ADK, and it's a nice way of working with cheaper devices, because this is one of the most expensive Arduino board. What's also pretty interesting is that there's a nice open source library to work with that, but also that it works on literally any Android out there. So from Android 1.5, the dinosaurs of Android, you will be able to interact with an Arduino board. It's also, as I said, the new ones are also ADK compatible. Of course, it's a hack, so it's mostly used for hobby prototypes rather than real prototypes. And let me show you one of my hobby prototypes. So I was actually working for a foundation in Switzerland called Cudrefin 02. And what they wanted is they wanted to show kids what was the effect or to visualize the electromagnetic fields. So they wanted to show them that whenever they use their phone, whenever they use a DECT phone or sit next to Wi-Fi, there's actually something happening, right? So they wanted to create a prototype that would let do that with a low cost. So basically what I created for them is an Arduino-based solution. So we have an Arduino Due underneath there. Actually Uno, sorry. And then on top we put this shield. And then we have two sensors. We have one for sensing lower fields, so low frequency electromagnetic fields. And then we have one for high frequency electromagnetic fields. So two sensors. Then we have an Android application that actually connects to it and starts visualizing the field. Now I'm saying yesterday I had a nice night because my phone got upgraded to Android 4.2.2. Only yesterday. We are always a little bit slower in Switzerland. And I tested the application, and in fact, it doesn't work anymore. And who knows why? If somebody knows why, he can directly have an NFC tag for free, the one he wants. Actually, what's new in the 4.2.2? Well, one of the things is that they enable this authentication of the computer on which you're using the ADB, right? And obviously, the Arduino doesn't really know to do RSA encryption and public key exchanges, so actually it doesn't work anymore. The accessory cannot communicate with the Android phone. So what I did is I went to the Alcatel booth, thanks a lot to Alcatel, and took one of their phones, which is not up to date. It's probably a Swiss phone as well. And I actually installed my app on it. So let me show you what it looks like again. So unfortunately, I can't show it on the display because I'm using the port, obviously. So this is what the application looks like. It's basically a tutorial about electromagnetic fields. I'm not a great designer, so it doesn't look extremely awesome, but and then we can select high frequencies. Let's try to monitor mobile phones in the room. It tells you a few stuff about mobile phones. And then I can start it, and we see that there is quite a lot of mobile phone activity in the room, right? And if you approach your mobile phone, it will just increase like crazy. Also, you can see the patterns when you create an SMS. So it's pretty nice. Kids loved it, actually. The only little problem is that instead of realizing that these waves might be harmful to them, they loved it and they kept phoning next to it to see the waves going very high up. All right, so let me show you what this looks like, especially on the Arduino side. Okay. 5 minutes. Yeah, that should be. Question comprise. Okay, so I'll go really quickly. Okay, so this is actually an open source project called Onde Visible, if you want to download it to try it yourself. And yeah, basically it's not a lot of code. So what we have to do here is pretty similar to what we had to do before with the ADK, with an exception. Here we need to write an event handler. Whoa. So we write this event handler, and this event handler can do several things. It can detect which of the sensor you're currently using, and it can also detect the actual data that you're sending and retrieving. Then in the setup, we basically need to initialize the ADB using that library, using the microbridge library. We add a connection. We see that basically it's simply a TCP connection. We open a socket, And we have here the main loop that actually at every CPU loop will be run, but we don't run the polling at every CPU loop because that was making the phone crash. So then we get the peak sensor value. So we get the sensor value directly from the last readings, and then we use the connection, the TCP connection, to get a byte that contains the value that we want to display. All right. On the Android side, I will not show it to you for the sake of time, but basically it's starting a TCP socket, and that TCP socket sends the data in the form of bytes. So it's also much more simple than the ADK. All right, so I compiled a number of useful links because I realized I cannot show everything I was doing here. So you have a couple of good links in the presentation in case you want to reproduce that about the microbridge project, the ADK, and so on. And with that, I'm open to questions. Thanks a lot. Volontiers.
Et si tu peux juste la répéter avant de...
D'accord.
J'ai une question, vous avez parlé des cartes là, mais c'est que filaire pour faire de l'embedded. Il y en a qui sont aussi sans fil avec des protocoles particuliers qui sont aujourd'hui utilisables avec le téléphone, pour connecter un téléphone.
Alors la question c'était est-ce qu'il existe des cartes de capteurs qui sont capables de travailler avec du Wi-Fi ou n'importe quel autre réseau sans fil. D'accord, ouais. Oui, exactement. Alors il existe, c'est une bonne remarque, il existe deux types de cartes. Je réponds en français ou en anglais? Ok. Il existe principalement deux types de cartes qu'on peut utiliser. Il y a le low power Bluetooth. Il y a certaines cartes qui commencent à arriver. On trouve pas mal de projets là autour sur Kickstarter qui commencent à démarrer. Ce qui est un peu plus présent et qui est déjà sur le marché, c'est ce genre de capteurs qui, eux, ont directement du Wi-Fi. Donc ça, c'est la taille finale du capteur et il a microprocesseur y compris et puis le module Wi-Fi. Donc là, on peut directement parler avec ces devices. Ce qui est assez intéressant, c'est que ceux-là, en plus, ont un serveur web. Donc pour pouvoir interagir avec, tout ce qu'il suffit de faire, c'est d'accéder à une URL pour, par exemple, obtenir la donnée de température. Donc c'est vraiment très très rapide.
Une dernière question, et puis après, vous allez encore avoir, il vous reste 20 minutes de pause de café avant la prochaine session. Donc la dernière, et puis ensuite, ceux qui veulent partir peuvent partir.
Il y a un motivé là.
Oui, il y a 2 ans, Google avait montré les API pour attaquer l'USB. Je m'attendais à ce qu'on voit une déferlante d'outils, de travaux, de produits qui sortent comme périphérique USB pour Android. Finalement, on ne voit pas grand-chose, malgré ce que tu nous as montré là. Est-ce que tu vois une raison à ça, ou est-ce que tu vois de choses qui vont sortir, des gadgets, d'autres logiciels, etc.
Tu veux dire d'autres gadgets que ceux qui allument des LED? Alors la question c'était, Google a poussé assez fort la communication via USB et puis on ne voit pas énormément de prototypes et surtout d'accessoires qui sortent sur le marché. C'est une bonne question. Je ne sais pas, peut-être une des raisons c'est qu'ils ont misé vraiment très fort sur Arduino et la plateforme Arduino est plutôt utilisée par des hackers, pas forcément des gens c'est des gens très intelligents mais qui construisent leur propre device. Ce n'est pas forcément des gens qui vont ensuite les commercialiser. Donc il y a énormément de projets. Si tu regardes sur le web, tu en trouves des milliers. Mais il y a peu d'accessoires, effectivement, qui ensuite sont portés vers des accessoires commerciaux.
J'ai la question, dans les API USB d'Android, c'est surtout les API qui permettent d'être client, pas serveur. Est-ce que tu sais s'il y a des moyens de tourner le modèle dans l'autre sens? Parce qu'on peut brancher un périphérique sur le téléphone, sur les gros qui communiquent avec, mais pas que le téléphone simule par exemple une imprimante ou autre chose.
Alors, en tout cas, dans la DK 2011, ce n'était pas faisable. Dans la DK 2012, sauf erreur, une des fonctionnalités qu'ils ont rajoutées, c'est justement la partie serveur. Donc dans l'ADK 2012, ils ont fait pas mal de changements, mais j'ai encore pas eu malheureusement le temps de beaucoup travailler avec parce qu'il n'existe encore pas beaucoup de devices qui supportent ça. Donc, parce que Google, à chaque Google I/O, font leur propre device pour ce cas d'utilisation.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Donc, pendant que tout le monde sort pour prendre le café, je vous annonce la prochaine session. Développeurs, hacker et protéger vos applications.
Cette carte-là, elle coûte combien?
Avec des conseils pour développer.
C'est pas très cher.
Ça, c'est ça?
Et c'est
Non,
précis.
Electric Imp, ouais. Ça, c'est une autre. Ça, c'est carrément une SD card, en fait.
Mais avec du mathématique, il y avait le Wi-Fi aussi.
Ouais, alors si tu veux, c'est la même chose que ça, mais sous forme de SD card. Ça, c'est un peu plus cher. Je crois qu'elle coûte quelque chose comme $80, quelque chose comme ça. Tandis que celle-ci, je crois qu'elle coûte 80. Celle-ci, elle coûte un truc genre $40, je crois.
Ça, c'est...
Ça, c'est de Open Picus Flyport.
Ah oui, d'accord, ouais.
Les Italiens. Mais ouais, l'Electric Imp, c'est un... Moi, j'en ai pas pris ici. Je me demandais si j'avais une Electric Imp ici, mais non, j'en ai pas pris. Mais c'est une très bonne solution aussi pour faire du Wi-Fi.
Et en Bluetooth Low Power, il y a des...
Un Bluetooth.
Bluetooth Low Energy aujourd'hui, c'est pas intégré dans Android en fait. Tu as les constructeurs qui publient des SDK, tu as celui de HTC qui a été présenté dernièrement, tu as celui de Samsung aussi qui est dispo sur développeur.samsung.com.
Ah ouais, je savais même pas que c'était
Ouais,
pas
c'est les constructeurs
supporté. Ok.
Aujourd'hui sur le S4, la stack Bluetooth Low Energy, c'est Samsung qui l'a fait développer.
Ah, justement, je l'avais vu marcher avec le S4.
Ouais, mais c'est le SDK qui est disponible
Qui a
dessus.
été
Et HTC
fait
a le
par,
sien aussi,
Samsung.
regardez si les autres constructeurs. Je sais que HTC, ils avaient fait une conf pendant le Google I/O, une conf à côté, pour présenter ça justement.
Et là, au niveau des cartes, il y a de...
Ouais, j'ai un collègue qui a lancé une boîte justement qui fait ses cartes. Si tu me donnes ton email, je peux t'envoyer parce que je connais pas par cœur l'adresse.
Je peux donner ma carte.
Mais ouais, il a lancé justement un tout petit device comme ça qui communique avec Android. Ouais, il est vraiment minuscule comme un bouton de manchette un peu.
Ah ouais?
Ouais.
Ah, c'est intéressant.
Donc je peux t'envoyer le...